Welcome to the Default Profitable Podcast, a show where we dive deep on real strategies behind starting and building consistently profitable businesses. If you're a founder, a leader, or just somebody who's a curious builder starting to dream big, this podcast is your toolkit for making profitable your default setting, not just some lucky outcome that happens every once in a while. I'm your host, Matt Nettleton. Today, my guest is Mikkel Thorup. Did I get that right?
You got it right. Very nice to meet you, Matt. I'm looking forward to today's conversation. Amazing show. I was looking back through previous guests and stuff like that. Very, very good content. So happy to be here and hopefully inspire and educate your audience a little bit.
Excellent. So why don't we start with introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your story.
Sure. So for my story, I have to go quite far back in time, but I will try to make it as concise as possible. But Matt, what happened when I was a child, I was actually diagnosed with a learning disability. And what happened was a teacher pulled me out of class one day and sat me down in a little room. And the principal and resource teacher and a couple people were there. And they said, Mikkel, something doesn't work quite right in your brain. And what we want to do is send you to a special school for special boys. And that's what they did, Matt. Every day for 3 years, I got on a little white bus and I took a little white bus across town and I went to this quote unquote special school. Now, only problem was it was actually a regular school with a special class. So you can probably imagine what happened. I got in lots of fights. I got picked on. I got bullied. And it was all around a bad experience. Now, this is no woe is me, poor Mikkel, victim type of story. Certainly not. I mean, I got hit and I hit back and I hit back twice as hard whenever I could. I would never claim otherwise. All right.
Yes.
But after 3 years, I finally got to go back to my neighborhood school. And I thought, my friends, everyone's going to be missing me. They're going to be so excited to see me. And, once again, you can probably imagine what happened. First day of school, I got back and everybody starts gossiping and whispering. And, I remember Mikkel, he went to some retard school. Thanks, guys. Very politically correct. You know how sensitive children can be, But it left a really bad taste in my mouth for state-run education, for public education. So I stopped going. And when I stopped going, I started failing. And when I started failing, I ended up just dropping out. So I stopped going to school when I was 12 years old. And I officially dropped out when I was 15. And not shortly after that, I started traveling. I started traveling internationally. And when I went overseas, I started to meet all these incredible people who were learning things and doing things and building businesses in completely different ways than I had ever seen in my life. And very quickly, I realized these are my people. Like, them's my peeps. Like, this is who I want to be and who I want to spend my time with. And there's not only one way to learn things and to do things. And nobody cares about my dyslexia, which was this horrible, terrible thing, in the 1980s, my learning disability to take me out of my neighborhood school was dyslexia, which now in 2025, we realize is actually not that big of a deal and actually very common. And actually some of the smartest people in the world also have dyslexia. So not a capital punishment like it was in the 1980s. Yes. But fast forward to today, and I have spent the last 25 years traveling and exploring the world nonstop. I've traveled to 120 some odd countries. I've lived in 9. I've circumnavigated the globe over 400 times. I work with people and help people to build their business offshore, to move it offshore. We deal with their tax and their immigration and their investment and their banking and all of these types of things. And I own real estate in a dozen different countries and have made a very successful career out of helping people with a problem that I saw in the marketplace, and then taking things that I knew and I was passionate about and building a business around that. So lots of backstory in 3 minutes there, and we can kind of go in whatever direction you like, but that's kind of in a nutshell.
Well, the first direction I'd like to go is I find it so interesting that your teachers told you your brain was wired wrong. And they were probably right if they wanted you to be a serf working on an assembly line. But
100%.
Self-employed people aren't good at that. We're just not wired that way. That's not the way any of the circuits connect. So, I mean, they kind of did you a favor, even though you didn't know it. I think that's fair to say.
Oh, 100%. I mean, now at 42 years old, I'm exceptionally proud that I had the courage to stand up and leave and say this is wrong. Now, did I
Right.
know that I was going to go out there and make millions of dollars and build a business, or what exactly was going to happen next? No, I had no idea. But I did know it was an abusive relationship with public education, and that I had to get out of it, and I had to get out of it in a peaceful manner, and that's exactly what I did. So now at 42, I'm very proud of that. When I was a
Yeah.
teenager, everybody was saying, "Oh, you're going to end up in prison, or you're going to end up in, a drug addict or something like that." And it's just because I didn't want to, because I couldn't sit still in class and couldn't, focus for 8 hours on memorizing rote, type of things that meant nothing to me. And by the way, now I work like 10, 12 hours a day, super focused. And if someone's talking to me, I don't even hear them because I'm so focused, because I'm so passionate about the work that I'm doing. I'm so engaged in it.
It is amazing how something that is both interesting and challenging can get you to focus versus memorizing the presidents in order, which is still something that I resent from my high school years. So, yeah,
For
I'm
sure.
right there with you. So, let's talk about your business. When did you actually start your current business?
So I started consulting professionally probably 12 years ago, 11 years ago, and about 10 years ago, actually started our company, ExpatMoney. So the first year or two, I was doing it just on the side while doing some other types of things. But now I've been doing full time for about 10 years. And it has been a huge learning process, not just like on the work product, because you have to understand I'm the CEO of my company, of a 32-person team, but I'm also the main consultant of it. So I work in the company and I work, on the company at both at the same time. Now I know that people are always saying, you need to remove yourself from the situation, and if something happens to you, yada yada yada. But to be honest with you, I'm still having a lot of fun doing the consulting itself. I am addicted to this, and I'll tell you because it's probably interested for your audience. I'm really addicted to this transition moment in a client's life where they come to me and they're, super stressed and their shoulders are all up like this and they've got this anxiety and they don't know what to do. And then, week after week, month after month, their shoulders kind of drop and their tone of voice and their pitch and their cadence and everything evens out. And you see this transformation in their life, and you're like, wow, I helped facilitate this. I helped, make a difference. And I just think that is just one of the coolest things in the world. So I still really like doing the actual work product itself.
Yeah, it's funny that we don't spend more time on this show talking about the work product, because the work product, it's your unique genius. It's what you can do,
100%.
right? But if you mentioned that there was a lot of learning, what are some of the things that you had to learn? Because you've had a pretty wide aperture on the world, right? You've seen a lot of stuff, and it seems like you've paid attention to most of it. But when you started the business, what are some of the things that you had to learn?
So good question. And you and I were chit-chatting before our recording, and I was explaining to you, I've bootstrapped all of this. I never took $1 of outside capital or money or even a loan or anything like that. So this started with me. Like, I was doing the consultant, I was writing the emails, I was doing the graphic design, I was doing the web development, I was doing everything. And you know what it is? That the only thing that I've never done is the video editing and the audio editing, because that is some really technical stuff. But I'd say every other piece of the business, that's 99% of the business, I have done at one point in my life. And the really amazing thing is, when I hire someone, I know how long it should take now. I know how much it should cost. And if one of my team members is saying, "Oh, this is going to take 2 weeks," I can go, "No, that's BS. I can get this done in an afternoon." But if I hadn't gone through each one of those roles, if I didn't know my business, every square inch of it, then I'd have no idea if I was being taken advantage of. Is this a good time? Is this good quality? Is it bad quality? How much technical? What needs to be done? I have no view of the landscape whatsoever. But I know every square inch of my business because I've done everything. So my normal way of doing it was, I would do something for, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, and then I'd learn as much as I could about it. I'd geek out on it, and I'd read blogs and podcasts and YouTube and books and ask questions and interview people. And as soon as I felt like, okay, I've got a good handle on this, I would immediately hire someone and I would pass it off to someone else. All right. So the pieces of the business that I were getting rid of at the beginning were the pieces that I hated. Now, here's the big difference is now I'm at the point in the business, I have to get rid of the stuff that I really enjoy. It's like all the stuff I didn't want to do, that was gone 8 years ago, 7 years ago, something like that. But now over the last, say, 3, 4 years, it's like all the stuff that I love doing, I still have to get rid of that. So now the only thing I do is I speak, doing interviews with you or hosting our podcast, the Expat Money Show. We're talking to clients and writing. Everything else in the business, almost everything else in my life is outsourced to one of my team members or anything like that. And we can also talk about the personal side and to get to a level of success, things that you guys might want to consider.
Yeah. So let's go to that personal side, because I think one of the things that small business owners, entrepreneurs, people who start, they kind of lose track of, a big part of owning your own business is to improve your quality of life. And, some people, they start a business and what they do is they hammer down and they work 15 hours a day on their business and 4 hours a day on their personal life. And they can't figure out why they can't sleep more than 3 hours. And they're not, it's just, they're doing too much. So talk a little bit about, you've gone from one person to 32. What are some of the things personally you've outsourced?
So here's another piece so that you understand the puzzle. I am a very present husband and a very present father. I have 4 children, and God willing, we will have a 5th, so we're not done yet. My oldest is 9 years old. My youngest is 5 months old. So I've got a growing family. Now, I work, I write, and I speak, as I highlighted, and I goof off and play with my kids. That is my life. What I do not do is I don't clean. I have a full-time cleaning lady. I do not cook. I have a full-time chef who 40 hours a week works for our family, professional chef, 18 years in the industry, decided he didn't want to work in restaurants anymore. He now only cooks for our family. We've got nannies. So I've got 2 full-time nannies who help change the diapers and keep the kids out of trouble and things like this. I don't drive. I don't drive a vehicle. Okay. Either I take Uber Black everywhere, or my wife has a vehicle. There are so many things I don't do. I don't manage my own calendar or schedule. I have a full-time assistant who does this. And it's basically, write, speak, and play with my kids. And that's it. That is my life all day, every day. And people might go, you don't drive a vehicle, but driving's so much fun. Well, that's great. You have to, you can get rid, once again, to go back to the business analogy, you start by getting rid of the things you don't like. But if you really want to take it to the next level, you get rid of the things that you do like. All right.
Yes.
So the children and my wife are non-negotiable. That is there. That is my purpose in life, is to be a husband and father on the family side and to serve my clients on the business side. Everything else is gone. And you don't need to do that if you're going to run a couple of $1 million business. But if you want to get to the level that I'm at and that I want to get to further, like, we run all of our wealth now through a single family office. So we've gotten to a very high net worth level. And if I'm going to do these types of things, I have to give up stuff. So you need to look at your life and kind of go through it and systematically, like, where are you spending your time? Where is your focus? If I have free time, I'm studying, I'm reading, I'm trying to find things that are going to better me so that I am more valuable in the marketplace. I'm not, we just moved into a new family home, a huge, beautiful family home. I'm not the one pulling out the drill and hanging up pictures. Can I do it for cheaper to hire, to do it myself opposed to hiring someone else? Yeah, but I bill at $1,200 an hour. So, I'm not going to, it doesn't make sense to me to go to the hardware store and get a drill and, figure all of this kind of stuff out. Like, I'm sure my father would just, his head would explode if he heard this interview. But this is what you need to do if you want to get to the higher levels.
Yeah. Yeah. It is, it's probably the most misunderstood metric in every business, which is the hourly rate. at which the business owner earns. And you cannot get to $1,200 an hour doing $32 an hour work or $12
100%.
an hour work. The only way to get to $1,200 an hour work is to focus on doing $1,500 an hour work. And gotta love you with 4 kids. I only have 3. And you gotta be there. You're not gonna get, there's nothing better. So,
Yep.
that's awesome. So when you think back to when you started your business, right? You're growing it, you're building it, it's off and running. What things do you wish you had known back when you started? Because you've gotten to the arc in the story where you've done well, but what things could have accelerated it?
I think for me personally, and this is probably not applicable to anybody else, but I'm going to tell you anyways, is that I really wish that I had forgiven myself much earlier in my life, forgiven myself for dropping out of school, for being a dyslexic, for all of these types of things. Like I told you, like now I'm very proud about it, but I'm 42. I wish that I was proud at 22 or something like that. Like I wish, that I didn't beat myself up, that I didn't listen to teachers and things like that who told me that something's wrong with your brain because I did as a teenager. I really did take that like on as part of my personality and it took years of going through this and being like, no, you are valuable, you are worthwhile. And that has been a challenging thing in my life. I guess to try to turn it into advice for other people, I mean, everybody has had hard things in their life or difficult things or things that they've had to overcome. And if you're still holding on to that baggage, whatever it might be, I would say put it down because it doesn't serve you and it's not going to serve your clients or, your goals or anything like that. Like I am not a victim. I am totally responsible for everything in my life. And the funny thing is, the more responsibility I have taken in my life, the better my life has gotten and the more successful my business has gotten and the more money I have made. I am so responsible for everything that I do that I never push it off to anybody else.
It's as we were talking and you talked about not being able to sit still in school, but being able to put in 10 hours straight of work. One of my guests made the point that if you're going to own a business, you have to be willing to wake up and think about it at 3 a.m. And
For
I
sure.
believe that's true. But you also have to be,
True. Go ahead, and then I'm going to give you a counterpoint on this, though.
but you also have to be willing to accept that the person that built the business is you with all your, foibles and whatever it is that makes you you. And it's okay. You're allowed to be different because small business owners in general, we're different. We're just not like everybody else.
That I agree with, but I want to dispel some rumor that makes it around, especially social media and things like that, where it's this hustle, grind,
Oh, yeah.
grind type of society. And to be an entrepreneur, you got to work 20-hour days and stuff like that. No, Matt. I mean, I wear a Whoop. I think I've noticed an Aura ring on your finger, maybe,
Yep.
and
Yep.
I have 100% sleep scores almost every single night of the week for months on end. Why? Because I really focus on the foundational things in everything in my life. For me, if you start burning yourself out or going to bed at late at night or, working and doing emails at 2 o'clock in the morning when you should be sleeping, you're not going to serve anybody. You're going to be giving a
Correct.
much worse work product, to go back to what we were talking about.
Yep.
I need to be at the highest levels because I do private client work. These are high net worth and ultra high net worth families who are coming to me and we're dealing with tax and immigration and legal issues. Okay. I'm not a lawyer, but I have lawyers who work for me. So I work as the CEO on all these. I have to be there at my best. And if I can, through proper diet and sleep and environmental things and low stress and low anxiety and all of these types of things, get 6 usable hours instead of 4 usable hours or 3 usable hours where I am so in the zone, where I'm in the flow and I am focused, that's worth millions of dollars a year to me. So I am never burning the candle at two ends. Okay. I'm not waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and talking about work or thinking about work. I am sleeping very soundly every single night. And everything, my entire environment is to support this. My family, my wife, my kids. I'm in my home office. I built a professional recording studio in my home office so that I can close soundproof doors so I don't hear the kids. We homeschool our kids, by the way. They're downstairs 4 levels below me. I don't hear them. I have nothing. My whole work is focused on, I don't do a commute. I don't do any of these excess things that are going to distract me. It's all foundational. And it's like, if you can get the foundation right, Matt, then everything else becomes a lot easier.
Yes. It's just so interesting because the focus, the ruthless execution of elimination is really it's refreshing. So when somebody comes to you and they're, you were young when you started your business, but if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, listen, I look at what you're doing and I'm thinking of leaving the big megacorp," how do you give them advice? How do you respond to that kind of statement? What do you do?
This is a challenging one. I'd be so remiss to tell other people how to live their life. I mean, I can try to use my own life as an example and show you things that I've done and what has worked and what has not worked. Um, I guess what I do believe is finding, I don't know, maybe this sounds a bit cliche, but finding your own voice or finding something that you can carve out that is yours. Like, Matt, I made up my business, okay? I invented it from scratch. It did not exist, okay? I'm an expat consultant. Like, most people don't even know what an expat is, okay? I created this. It's a recipe. It's 20% lawyer, 20% accountant, 20%, property developer and real estate broker, 20% precious metals expert. Like, I had to go out there and learn all of these types of things. I can tell you that the more you create content, writing, podcasting, YouTube, anything like that, the more that you study it and the more that you have to explain it to somebody else, the better you will get at it. Okay. I mean, for 10 years, I've been basically 9 hours, 8 hours a day consulting with clients. Okay. So I create content around it. I talk about it. I research about it. I read about it. I sit on the call with every single lawyer. Like I said, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm on the call with the lawyer and the client 4 hours a day, translating legalese into layman speech, because lawyers often have no idea how to explain complicated concepts to people who don't have an analytical mind, who are just normal people.
Humans.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So I have to take this and I need to translate it into something else, or as I affectionately call, translating English to English. Okay. And that is a large portion of my job. But imagine hours and hours and hours and hours of that for a decade. Well, I get really, really good at these types of things. So, then I talk about it. Then I document everything. And so I am, not to blow my own horn here, but I am really an expert in these types of things because I put in the time to do it.
Yep.
So it would be, if you were thinking about leaving, corporate America and you wanted to go and do something else, you wanted to start an entrepreneur, okay, are you really an expert at it? If not, well, how are you going to get there? What's your plan on getting to that place? I would suggest start a Medium account or a Substack and start writing about it and start exploring the ideas and put your ideas together in essay format, or start a podcast and start interviewing people and learn the flow of questions and what are people going to be asking. Build up a name for yourself. So when you actually want to launch a product, then you have a group of clients already. Because if you want to just go out there and try to solve a problem, well, if you don't really understand, maybe you see the problem, but do other people have the problem? Are they willing to pay for it? Like, you can do the content on the side and get all this experience. And then when you launch something, it's tailor made based on their exact needs. I think that's a
Yeah.
much less risky way of doing it than, going and raising capital for an idea and who knows if it's going to work. Like, as I said, I've not taken $1 from anybody else. I bootstrapped everything.
Yeah, it's perfect. So, it's 2025, you're 12 years in. If 2025 Mikkel could go back and sit next to 2013 Mikkel and say, "Hey, everything works out, things will be fine. By the way, tomorrow when you go in and you start your company, here's what you need to do first." what would you advise somebody to do first? What would you advise yourself to do first?
Ooh. I mean, I think it's difficult because, when I started mine, I went heavy into podcast and newsletters. Newsletters was a great move. Podcasts have been difficult. If I had taken all of that energy and put it into video content, into YouTube, then my business would have been 10 times the size. But you go back 10, 12 years, podcasts were coming up. They were growing 20% a year. YouTube was growing up. It was growing at whatever percentage a year, but we didn't really know how this was going to turn out. In reality, YouTube is run by Google. They have algorithms. They push out the popular content. Podcasts are a decentralized method. So there's nobody pushing it out, which is good for censorship. You can't be censored on a podcast. You can say what you want, but you don't have that algorithm helping, that invisible hand pushing things through. So, I mean, that's one of the things that if I wish I could have. So identifying the trend and maybe being a little bit more clear about the trend would have been a good one. That and buy Bitcoin in 2013 instead of, I bought in 2016, but I could have gotten really those first year. Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, it's funny because I think 3 of the last 4 guests buying Bitcoin early. So that seems to
I
be
bought
a
Bitcoin
common
when it was
theme.
3 figures, but I have friends who bought it at 1 figure, and they bought I know one guy, he bought 10,000 coins when it was 3. And I was like, what do you mean 3? Like 300? He's like, no, 3. And I was like, Jesus. So yeah, there's always that.
Yeah. All right. Any other advice? Any other wisdom? We're at 25 minutes. That was quick. Any other advice that you would give somebody who's an aspiring or a new owner? I mean, the passion comes through.
The majority of my work is really focused on moving offshore. So what I would say is, especially if you're a younger person listening to this and you haven't yet established your roots, you might want to look at what it would be like to build your business overseas, because often you can take, your good education or, trends that you're seeing in North America and bring them down to a place like Latin America, which are not yet as developed or as sophisticated, and you have a huge competitive advantage. So if you can kind of look around or travel the world and borrow ideas and bring them over from one place to another place, that's huge. Or if you're doing something in a different industry, what is the normal thing in one industry that everybody knows and gets every day, but in another industry, nobody's doing it? What ideas can you transplant from one place or one location or one industry to another that's going to give you a competitive advantage? I mean, there's a lot to this. Like, we now have projects in Paraguay where I'm doing a ton of work in Paraguay, where I've, by the way, sat down with the president of Paraguay twice, Santiago Peña, to discuss ideas with him on foreign direct investment and expats and bringing businesses there and things like that. And I've had, one-on-one meetings with the president of the country for half an hour to go over things. Like, that's not going to happen back home, but you can have an advantage like that in another country. And so, we're investing heavily in foreign countries and bringing in, really smart people and, training the local workforce and doing a knowledge transfer. So the local populace love you because they're learning new concepts and ideas and things like that are commonplace back home for us, but are completely foreign to them.
Yeah. It's such an interesting thing. I hope people go and check out your website and some of the things that you have posted, because it's really, it is fascinating. Well, I'm going to thank everybody for joining us on this episode. To learn more about Mikkel and his business, go to the show notes at defaultprofitable.com. It'll take you back to him. Mikkel, thanks for being a great guest.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you very much, Matt. I appreciate your time. And once again, awesome show. And anybody from your audience who needs help with these types of things, visit us at expatmoney.com, and we're here to help.
That's fantastic. If you like what you're hearing, 3 ways you can help: leave a review, hit subscribe, share an episode. And with that, we'll be back next week. Until then, stay focused, keep working, stay profitable.